I am so happy to see you again, Adis. How are you?
I'm well, Mark. It's good to be with you again.
No, it's definitely our pleasure. I am in Boston right now, and you are in Miami, I believe.
I am, and I'm tanned, and you're white.
Thank you for reconfirming that. Well,
How
I'm
about
white
now?
as the snow up here, but hopefully get back to Los Angeles and Miami soon and get a little bit of color in my face. So let's start. This is our leadership series. Let's start, if you could, by just introducing yourself and telling our audience who you are.
I'm Adis Vila, and presently I am a senior fellow at the Institute for Cross-Cultural Management at the Florida Institute of Technology, which is a private university in Melbourne, Florida.
Awesome. We'll get right to the first question. Like I said, this is about leadership. What's your definition or perspective of leadership?
When I first became a White House fellow, I was very lucky to be exposed to John Gardner, who founded the program and who had written profoundly on the topic of leadership. And over the last 35 years, I think I've really come to terms with who leaders are and what leaders do to really deserve that title. So I would say a leader is someone of utmost integrity who is able to communicate across all stakeholders, internal and external, a vision, and who is able to develop in the people with whom he or she is to accomplish that vision a sense of purpose. And his or her measure of success is not only the outcome of the efforts, but also the organizational culture which he leads in building so that people feel good not only about their individual success, but about their group success as well.
It's very interesting because I was just talking to an executive this morning, and we talk a lot about trust, which is a big point too. And one of the key things he said, and I hear it all the time, is leaders know how to develop leaders.
Right. Well, a lot of people used to only say that it was about getting people to do things that they don't want to do and liking it.
Right.
But that misses the social purpose of leading. And it becomes extremely outcome oriented and not about the process, which is the longer term and how people feel about the work that they do.
It's a great point. It's funny. I compare a lot of things to sports, and the coach that gets told if you don't win this season, you're fired, then just does things short term. It's the ones that truly recognize, as you say. I think it's a great point you bring up that if you're looking long term, that's where a true leader can really do
That's
their
right.
stuff.
Always by setting an example first and always telling the truth. Leaders who lie, one, don't earn the trust, and two, have a very short tenure.
Absolutely agree. Well, your background, is definitely impressive, and I always have to thank Ruth Brophy for introducing us. It's truly one of diversity. It's global. It's multicultural. You've had corporate and academic and so much more. Now, I know you have goals in the college education arena, correct?
Yes, for about the last 10 years, I have been checking all the boxes required to lead a university. So I was very fortunate to do courses like the ACE, Advancing to the Presidency, and the Millennium Leadership Initiative to bring people of color into executive university administration. And I've been very fortunate. The last 6 months or so, I have begun to be nominated for some of these university presidencies. Yeah, I'm going to keep at it until it happens.
That's awesome. Well, how do you see business and academic leaders, working together? And for that matter, how do you see young people planning for their education and their success in business and life in general?
Well, some people think that a college education is a 4-year term. But no, a college education is the beginning of lifelong learning. And universities that are successful are those who help young people transform their lives. And they do so by teaching young people not only about themselves, but also about others, how to work together, who teach these young people about how to make a difference, not for 4 years, but for a lifetime, and who excite young people about learning. The good faculty member is never the one who gave you the A. It's always the one who impacted your long-term career. Kids don't go back to college reunions to see football games. That's the excuse. They really go back to see their faculty and their classmates. Why is that? Well, because those are the people that transform their lives. So if we're thinking about the future of the world, and with all its global implications, it is imperative that faculty, administrators, communities, and businesses work together to ensure that young people, this very important age group of 18 to 22, who first come to college, have a positive experience. When you invest $10, $15, $20,000 a year, and you only have a graduation rate of 50%, in community colleges sometimes 20%, that is very sad for America, because we cannot afford as a country and as a world to not have highly competitive, highly global citizens running our country, our businesses, our education. No sector will benefit if our young people don't have a high quality education.
Well, it's an interesting world right now. I have two more going into college, one already, and the cost is incredible, obviously. How do you foresee young people of all kinds of young people being able to get into school, but also be able to choose what they should do when they're in college?
It's not a one-time thing. A lot of folks believe that if you get the young person to apply, and you get them to apply to at least five places, that the work is done. But really, that's just a first step. From beginning in junior high school,
right,
adults, whether in places of worship or at home or in high school, ought to be talking to people about not a particular career, but about the things that engage them, that motivate them, that excite them. When I went to college, I had never even met an attorney. I went to college to major in math because at the time, Rollins had full scholarships in the field of mathematics. And as someone who came from a very humble background, I needed to go to a university or a college that could afford to pay for me to go to college. But that was okay, because once I got to college, all those wonderful faculty members and administrators with whom I came in touch opened up avenues for me through student involvement, by working at Disney World, by giving back through my sorority to the Heart Foundation. All of those experiences, the sum of all those experiences, is what motivated me to look into going to law school. Because by then, through alumni activities at the school, I became aware of what lawyers did. And so it's very important, even for the humblest young person around, to have adults in their lives who can introduce them to different career patterns and not be able to switch. Once upon a time, people took one career in one firm and finished 50 years later and got a gold watch. Today's young people will have not just 5 or 7 jobs. They may have 5 or 7 careers and 10 or 12 jobs. So it's important that you shape young people's future, if you will, early on by letting them know that it's not about a job. It's about a set of skills that allow you to make a meaningful life for yourself.
Yeah, that's as my British friends would say, that's brilliant. I was reading recently where they say that, in fact, younger people in the next 10, 20 years may have 30 different jobs in their lifetime, whereas now we think that people switch jobs 2, 3, 4 times. It's a lot. So it's a lot about building a foundation as well, self-esteem, confidence, and you're right. I had some great teachers that really got me involved in too. So I think that's an awesome point. Obviously, the world. This is going to be repetitive, but the world is global right now, and there's importance that it's high value given to languages, but I think especially culture. How do you see the importance of that in education?
Well, it's one of those chicken or the egg. Our high schools and our primary schools receive funds based on property taxes in most states. Students who come from communities with low property taxes are less likely to be exposed to foreign languages, cultural subjects like architecture or civilization or those kinds of subjects. So it's important for community to support, and business too, to support the efforts of even the poorest of these communities so that young people as early as elementary school are exposed to the world. Now, a lot can be done through the internet, just like we're Skyping now. Students can get pen pals when they're young and use the internet to access those pen pals in Japan and so on and so forth. And then as they get older, they can experience things by participating in exchange programs, like the very successful ones that the Rotary Foundation sponsors for high schoolers, and then eventually go to college and go on exchange programs. But all of that costs money. Private universities have to raise hefty endowments to be able to support these kinds of programs if all young people, regardless of their means, are going to be able to participate. But I assure you that as a nation, we cannot afford not to do that. When I lived in Europe, my classmates spoke 3, 4, 5 languages. I was an atypical American in that I spoke at the time 3 languages. So if you happen to come to the U.S. as an immigrant, like I did, it's very important that your family not think totally about a total absorption into the U.S. culture, but do both. Maintain your family culture, right, which my mom was very good about doing, even as I absorbed the U.S. culture, and learn not just English well, but also learn Spanish, French, and in my case, German and Portuguese. The latter 2 I don't speak as often, so I don't speak as well. Spanish I still speak every day, so obviously that's never going to go away. And the French, because my teachers were so good at it, I've never and probably never will forget. But again, that is the quality of the education that one is afforded, and the trips, which in my case included living with families in France and in Switzerland. I believe that more and more we should make those kinds of opportunities available to all young people, and that we should make them available to them when they're young enough to absorb all those opportunities.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I had those opportunities too, through sports, through school, through all sorts of things that, et maintenant je parle français aussi, comme toi, growing up in Montreal, and un poquito de español when I was in Miami. So it does make a difference, if not only just to show people you're open to who they are and understanding each other, etc. So let me switch a little bit. Boards also make critical contributions to, obviously, to business, to the companies that they serve, but also in education. And one thing in our executive search firm, we're doing a lot of work with board advisory and board search, and diversity has become a major topic without a doubt. What's your perspectives on what, especially from your diverse background, what's your perspectives on what a board's contribution
that's a good
should
point.
be,
so much of
this
has to do with national culture. In some countries, establishing quotas works very well. A good example of that are the Scandinavian countries. Norway, to be specific, a law is passed requiring large companies to have women on their boards. Within 3 years, the number of women on boards go from nowhere to 30-40%. In other national cultures, including the U.S., which is a very independent culture, people don't want to see people, and I should say including women, don't necessarily want to see quotas. But they do believe that a more diverse culture, and diversity explained not just in gender or ethnicity, but also in cognitive diversity. What kinds of life experiences, what kind of work experiences people have had has now more than been demonstrated to impact even the financial returns of companies. So I am a huge proponent that women and people of color who have experiences outside of business, whether it's in government or higher ed like I have had, but also who have lived throughout the world and worked in different industries, can bring potentially quite a bit to a company. So I would like to see, not just for myself, because I'm very interested in corporate governance, but for all others who at least have an opportunity. And I commend the work that you and your firm are doing, because more and more firms need to think of helping the nominating committee and the governance committee put together slates that are truly diverse. And that means going beyond the comfort of the established relationships between existing members of the board and the CEO.
Yeah, well, thanks. I agree. It used to be just a good old boys club, as we know, and everybody from the same industry. If you think about it, didn't make sense. You need diverse perspectives and input, and and people who understand who the customers are, and so on and so forth. And it's moving in that direction, which is great news, I think, for everybody.
There you go.
Couple of personal questions, if really personal questions.
Well, my favorite sport
Do you have a
is
favorite
baseball.
activity or sport?
I want to be true to my national culture. And as you know, Cubans grow up on the sport. But I love basketball. And my favorite activity really is watching international films. I'm very active in the Miami International Film Festival and somewhat spoiled. I get to see a foreign film just about every week. And then I love golf, but I'm terrible at it and don't anticipate getting much better at it in the short term. There you go.
Well, it's okay because my friends tell me my best driving is the golf cart. So I'm with you on that. I saw a great
Huh.
independent movie, not to go too far into this subject, called The Intouchable. Great independent movie. I love independent
Yes.
movies too. There's so much, aside from entertainment, so much to learn in those movies.
Classical.
It's
I'm very
fantastic.
lucky
Hey,
that
do you have a favorite
we have a
type of
wonderful
music?
symphony here established called the New World Symphony, established about 20 some years ago now, that attracts really the best young musicians from all over the world. And they come on fellowships for 2 or 3 years in Miami before they go off to play for different symphonies. And I have season tickets for that. I also have season tickets for the ballet. So I love culture, as you can see, in all its forms.
Well, it's the best, and that also brings people together better
Yeah, I
than
like Italian, I
anything
like
out there. Do
French, I
you have a
like
favorite type of
Cuban.
food?
From the look of me, you can see that I am a foodie.
Now.
Well, no, you can't bring any
um,
food into the New
so
World
that's what
Symphony
you eat
Hall,
while you're
and
listening
I
to
want to make sure
classical
that they don't
music.
send their guards after me,
No, I
the
know.
elderly folks who volunteer there, and I'd hate for them to break their neck looking whether I have any food in the theater.
No, good point. Good point. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I know there's so much
I
more we can
will.
talk
Thank you,
about,
Mark,
but
for having me.
thank you very much. Say hello to my
Thank you.
friends